All right, welcome back. Now, it's time for us to get into the political segment of this show, being the 31st day of October 2022. We should be expecting so much now that the cabinet is now fully constituted as per the constitution and as per the requirements of the law. So today, I would like us to focus more on that and what you should expect in the Ruto administration moving forward. In the studio, I have got Edgar Koskei, who is a political analyst, joining me on the show. I have got Edgar Awino, who is a communications expert and budding lawyer. And the only lady on set today, Atieno, Ogolla, who is an advocate of the High Court. Gentlemen and lady, karibuni sana.
Asante sana.
Starting with you, Edgar.
Yes,
they say, Yamune?
Edgar, Koskei, yes. We sing.
All right.
Yes.
Gilbert would tell you Ademaber or yes, Anti-Maber.
True.
Yes. Okay. Karibuni sana.
Asante sana.
So it was a busy weekend, so to speak, and the past 1 week and even the 2 weeks, you know, it's been so hard politically speaking. And now let's take a look. Let's just go back and see what really happened. But before then, there's an interesting bit here on the front page of the Star newspaper. And the Star newspaper says that Uhuru men have been humbled in defeat. That's according to President William Ruto. Uhuru men have been humbled in defeat. Ruto, they say that they're now living in shame, humiliation for trying to thwart people's will. And the story continues to say that the president says they are now in deep regret. Let me just start by asking you this, Gilbert. I don't know what's your take on this. Now that we have a complete cabinet,
yes,
it was deemed to happen. A transition cabinet, the government was due to happen, and now we have a new government altogether.
Yes.
So why would these people live in regret and in shame, according to the president?
You remember, in the last government, he was the deputy president. He was an insider who found himself in the periphery. And of course, the happenings then were not in good books with him. And he went further, if you notice. He even used terms like foolish people we hired,
yes,
who made it really hard for us to work. And for that matter, I should apologize. So the president is just hitting back at people who he feels offended him at the time that he ought to have been given the due respect as the deputy president. So we can say the chicken has come home to roost. Yes.
Because when you look at, let me just quote what the president said. I ask for your forgiveness because that government was put together by retired President Uhuru Kenyatta and me. We had very arrogant, proud, and stupid people in it, and that is why they even tear-gassed a church. Someone would argue that the president is hitting out at those people who were in the last regime, but don't you think it's now time to move on?
Yes, I think it's time to move on, and this is the problem that certainly they will find themselves in. It looks like the president was not prepared for the presidency because he's taking too much time using the side mirror, yes, as opposed to looking forward. And oftentimes, yesterday I watched as they had the political, church event in Muranga.
Yes.
And yes, they had gone for a Thanksgiving occasion in that church. But certainly it was a political event. It had all the political players, both former and current, and aspiring, you know, sitting, and they were given due recognition. And you had Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua referring to Raila as that old man. You know, those are terminologies that are endearing because these are also citizens. So the president and his team are still not done with those guys, the ones who made our lives difficult, the ones who perhaps thought they were going to lead this country. So we are the guys on power. Give us a moment just to take time and look back at you and say, gentlemen, you thought you were going to have it. Now we have it. Wait and see what we are going to do. That essentially is the stage at which they are at. Potentially, therefore, that gives the opposition, and because it looked like Kenya doesn't have an opposition front.
Yes.
But what this does now is that he's creating, a basket of dissenting voices. Sooner, you'll find Ruto government, I think, will have one of the, the most hard-hitting opposition players, because Raila Odinga is a very bad leader, as perhaps people have opined. But given an opportunity to thrive in an opposition environment, you will see a different person. And just last weekend, he said, I'm not done yet. So perhaps people who thought that Raila is done and dusted, perhaps we are yet to see. Certainly he will resuscitate to the opposition person we have always known.
Okay.
So, yes.
Koskei, let me get your voice on this.
Yes.
Based on what we have on the Star newspaper, Uhuru men have been humbled and in defeat, and they're now living in regret and in shame. And according to the president, some of them were arrogant, proud, and stupid.
Now, some of the words that you've mentioned are unfortunate, and they are so big.
Yeah.
Arrogant and stupid. Those are very big words.
Of course, I've just quoted what's also what he said.
Those are very big words.
Exactly.
And they are coming from our leaders to the people who served us in the previous regime. Now, but you understand where these people came from. I understand the deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, so much. When you parade someone, you match him from his house at night in the view of the wife and the children. You arrest him in an ignominious manner, in a manner that is shameful.
Yeah.
Such pains go deeply into your heart. That's why these people do not heal really easily. The deputy president then was humiliated publicly and called that person who has power and has no power. The president underwent very tough times during the 5 years during the handshake moment. And this one, he's just been in power for a month or two.
2 months right now.
Yes. And I totally understand what he is trying to say and what he's trying to do. It is not that he is just talking. This is a person who understands that the country needs progress and the country needs to move on. He's been launching houses here and there. He's been starting projects 1, 2, 3 here and there. Yet he still wants to remind us that this is where we've come from and this is where we're going. Sometimes bitter words like those ones can be used, which is quite unfortunate. But as Kenyans, we understand. Those people who are on the other political divide think that people should move on. But they should understand that pain has a process of going away. It goes away slowly. Even a wound doesn't just go away like that.
Yes.
It leaves a mark somewhere and it goes slowly. So as these people heal,
who is under some serious
let them heal slowly.
Who are humiliated, or people who are defeated?
I'm tempted to interject.
Well,
because both parties are hurting, if you ask me.
Wait. Now, this infliction of pain went on for 5 years, Victor. 5 good years.
Were you part of the pain?
I was.
Okay.
Yes, I was.
All right.
5 good years. Now that these people have victory, allow them to vent and allow them to talk. Sometimes those are unfortunate words. We are sorry. Very unfortunate. But allow them to heal. Rigathi sometimes talks with passion and says, huyo jamaa wa, or those other words.
Yes.
Kenyans, and let them heal slowly. There are people who are sacked from office without notice. I know my friends who went home without a penny. They had to relocate from Nairobi to Ocha. Their kids had to be moved from Nairobi home using just flimsy grounds. And the case is started at our courts. And you find yourself at home with your children for 4 years, Victor.
My director is asking, why the drama festival? Did you narrate any narrative for us?
Tell them to come here. We debate.
All right. Let me come to Atieno. What's such as this? And based on what is also saying that some people went through some hard moments for 5 good years. Now there is a new government altogether. People would suppose that the president should now act as a unifying factor. Much as other people are also hurting, they hurt, yes. But when it comes to this particular point that the president said that they're now living in shame, they're humiliated and all that, what do you think the president is trying to push out there?
Okay, this is just a typical depiction of that saying that he who laughs last, laughs best. You're saying that, of course, as my colleagues have clearly said, that the president and some of his allies underwent humiliation during the last 5 years and maybe also in other capacities.
Yes.
But I think it's time for the president to try and unite the country, because also the number of voters who also didn't put him in are also to be considered as we try to move forward. And of course he should now focus on delivering in the areas that he said he's going to make the various changes. So it's quite unfortunate, but I think now moving forward everyone should try to be at least balanced, because people are really watching and everyone is trying to seek hope, and therefore the president should be a unifying factor.
All right. Gilbert, is the president balancing governance and politics at the same time?
I think he's yet to get there, and I appreciate the pain, the shoe that Koskei here is wearing on what really happened and the justification to the subsequent behavior. But I want to remind him that in this country there are people who are detained for about a decade. In South Africa, Nelson Mandela was detained for 27 years.
Yes.
He never came out of prison to tell you that, you know, I was treated so badly that now it's time for me to also hit back at those people.
And remember when he came back?
Yes.
His relationship with the Klerk.
Actually, the Klerk became his deputy. He led reconciliation. So I think it is time for the deputy and his president to be the true statesmen that they ought to have been. I mean, life is essentially like that. They are the ones who reminded us during political season that in politics, there is no permanent enemy, there is no permanent friend.
Yes.
And the happenings that perhaps they experience, I just wonder how entitled they were to certain treatments that basically have to be referenced to even when things have moved on. We went for election and the constitution mandates everyone to vote for the person they prefer. They emerge the winner. You realize that during just in the run-up to the August elections, the president was essentially using three components in his messaging. He would use logic, where he would give us numbers. He would persuade us emotionally, where he would tell us, you know, these people have treated us so badly. And he also invested in the people who would give him credibility. They always made reference to doctor. You know, his naming was quite consistent. That kind of categorization had its place in making sure that he wins. Now, he has won, but he's still campaigning. He's still employing the same messaging, like he has, you know, people to vote for him. So I think, and particularly the context within which perhaps this happened, Koskei, they were in a church function. It was a Thanksgiving. You have come to church essentially to say thank you. And you know, we go to church in supplication. There is how we carry. The decorum that characterizes a church function was missing. However, I have no doubt that William Ruto is a mover and shaker, and I think perhaps, you know, you have to do a bit of reflection, and perhaps it will be sooner that you will see a different Ruto, you know, moving forward to what he ought to.
I'm quite excited to see that kind of different Ruto we are likely to see. But Edgar, I mean, when you look at the function, it's a Thanksgiving church ceremony, of which the way it is, it's going to go all the way for the next 5 years. Moi style. Moi used to attend, he was a member of AIC,
Yes.
Exactly. Every Sunday, President Moi was in charge, and KBC did that job for
Yes.
religious.
And you began it yesterday.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's our job anyway. So now, when you look at the situation, there is. But I'm quite interested in understanding why Raila's name has to appear in every Sunday church service. Raila is not in government. He's out. For the last 10 or so days or a week or two, he's been away. But each and every Sunday, his name appears. Azimio name appears. Actually, it's not even Azimio. Wale watu wa kuzimia.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
Are we still in campaign mode? I mean, life is going on. We're being told now, let's pay taxes, meaning it's over.
Yes.
Take it away.
Victor, we are just 1 month after elections.
2 months.
And 2 months, yes. And I just said, let people heal the way they want to heal. You've given an example of Nelson Mandela, who just healed just like, and embraced all his opponents. People heal differently, and people move on differently. The platform which people use to send their messages, as we speak now, is quite unfortunate. It is in church, but as we said, we use different platforms to communicate differently. That's why I was saying, let us heal. We will eventually heal. We will finally heal. But I am glad he has spoken. He has said that William Ruto is someone who works really hard, and very soon we are yet to see that this person is unmatched. The opposition will have no role. I can tell you for a fact.
The opposition will have no role?
Yes.
How?
You know why? Because what will be done will be above board. This is someone who understands what sustainable development goals are. This is someone who understands what social housing is. When he tells you that someone in Kibra is going to pay 2,400 shillings for rent, and that house you're going to own, who has come up with that? And he is targeting 2 million houses in this year. At least that is what I overheard him talking about. So there are plans to salvage the local Mwananchi from poverty and from whatever is happening. And he will do everything in his power until we will have nothing to fight against. Right now they are fighting about, they were talking about GMOs coming into the country. I don't want to open that topic. But when we come to a table and when we have an understanding together, we will realize that there is food that we have to put on the table for our people in the country. Otherwise, the name of the former premier appearing in each and every platform means that he was the main opponent, and he was part of the government that was toppled, that went. So he was part and parcel of this struggle. He was their fiercest opponent. In fact, half of the country was behind him. And now that we have a new president who should bring us together, we do not have those two factions any other. We do not have those two factions. Yeah. But what I want to say is, as we heal, let us allow them to talk about whatever it is they went through in the hands of the former premier, because he was at the center of the government.
All right. Allow us to take a break. And we come back. I love the way you're putting it. But then I'm still interested in understanding why Raila's name has to appear, because he was the main opponent, rightly put.
Yes.
But at this particular point, is it a way to make him or to break him? Someone would say that Raila thrives very well in opposition, so calling his name is like to provoke him to come back to his real life. It's like taking fish into water. Oloo, please, no pun intended. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with more.
Hii pain ya Ruto unaisikia sana.
Welcome back. All right, so let's continue with the discussion. I don't know which part of the country you're watching us from. Please talk to us on our social media handles. They will tell you their respective media handles, social media handles, so that you can also talk to them directly there. You can also reach them. They are professionals, so you can seek their advice or services anytime you want. Okay, so let me come back to you, Wakili. When you hear, let's talk about now the president and his cabinet, and now the real situation on the ground. When you hear Rigathi Gachagua talking like that, it's like roles have flipped. The way the president is now speaking right now, he is completely taken on a different court, somehow dropped the other one, which was so combative and trying to be presidential in a way. Even though he's a politician, that political skin is not fully shed off. We can still get some traces of politics in him. But you can see the DP now taking the lead role of, quote unquote, an attack soldier. Do the job. Take it away.
One thing I can say that I learned from this political season, everything is carried out intentionally. So any act or omission is not by mistake by politicians, especially if you look at how our president carried out his campaign. You'll learn that he carries out his plans with military precision. So the role that Rigathi Gachagua is actually taking right now is intentional and for a reason. And I would not like to speculate because I would not like to be misquoted for saying anything regarding that. But what I can say is that the president understands his posture that he should take. And now, of course, he is trying to, let me say, carry out his agenda using different ways. Okay? And of course, in the coming days, we will come to understand why Rigathi is actually speaking the way he's speaking. But I can say that the president is now shaping up and actually now taking his lead role as he should. Yes.
Gilbert.
Let me make reference to Bwana Koskei. One of the issues I want to raise is that the reason I think Raila's name has to suffice is that Raila has been the snake in the political competition. So you know, even when you've killed a snake, but you know this is a poisonous snake,
Still killing.
you keep hitting because you don't know whether it's awake and then it resurrects it to actually bite you. So they are not sure yet. You remember one of the political bigwigs from Rift Valley once said that their biggest worry in the Uhuru Ruto government, 2013-2017, was what Raila Odinga was thinking. And in as much as you'd want to give credit to William Ruto that he carries out his political schemes with the military precision, but he's still a human being. He's not a god. The fear of what Raila might do. Uhuru, you remember they said since Raila joined Uhuru had even added some weight. The peace that he experienced. So I think that is the reason why we see them, you know, continuing to hit him on the head, even though he's on the ground. But as a citizen and as a society, we also have a duty to hold them accountable. We cannot be clapping when just 2 months ago they promised us that they were going to provide instant solutions to things that affect us. When it was argued that the price of oil has gone up because of war in Ukraine, the president now dismissed and said the problem is arising from our problems within. And therefore we believed that as soon as he came to office, that was something that he could basically just bring down immediately. The cost of hunger, he said, is not related to any external issue. He said it's something that he thinks it can be brought down immediately. He promised watu wa chini. I am actually going to make sure that these things come down. Now we hear they're saying it will be after a year. They say, you see, it came down, but we can't feel it. On the ground, people are actually concerned with real things that affect them. Issues of perhaps, for example, gender-based violence, issues about quality of life. Those are things that affect real Kenyans. Just about over the weekend, I think a teacher organization called Kenya Women Teachers Association rescued 15 girls in Nyaroha girls because they were just about to undergo female genital mutilations. In other words, Kenyans have real problems that they would want this government to fix as opposed to stories. Yeah. However, on the flip side, I think William Ruto's presidency might be good for us in this perspective. In the 5 years that has led Koskei to be so bitter, however, I think it actually made him experience what the common person experiences. Common person is arrested by cops every day. The common person is always dragged in court for one reason or another. So they are able to experience what we actually feel as watu wa chini. Therefore, that puts him in a better state to provide solutions to the issue that we face. For example, taxation. Yeah. We are overtaxed in this country. I'm just disappointed that instead of talking about reduction of taxes, he's talking about expanding while maintaining the status quo of the tax system. So I'm sure perhaps that's what is coming out, but perhaps he has a better mechanism of making sure that even KRA is more disciplined in how they handle as citizens.
We're going to talk about.
Yes, but you had, I'm still on Rigathi Gachagua, you had Gachagua saying that thank you for bringing an end to the politics of deceit. A confirmation that we are still on the side mirror. I think Ruto has done better in this regard because the promises he made to his people, he executed like 80% of that, except for a few. We've seen Sonko is still not in cabinet, Malala is not in cabinet, the guy of Mombasa is not in cabinet. But a number of his political supporters, he has actually honored the promises he gave them. So I think that gives him a political score on his side. Yeah.
Koskei, they're still on the rear mirror?
I ran for office. And I'm not complaining. He has said that he has kept his promises to very many people. There are very many people who would like to be included in the current government. But how he leads and how he talks to people, he convinces, he will talk to you personally that you understand that priority needs to be taken this way and this way. So no one is running anywhere. No one wants to go to the cabinet. The way you're saying that Malala is not in cabinet yet. People are contented where they are. His leadership is on point, and we will look at him after 5 years, and we'll come and look at what he has done after 5 years. But I want to promise you that what this guy is going to do. Let me just not use big words. Anyway, for the rear mirror, I will still maintain that for us to know where we're going, we need to understand our history. If I come to Nairobi and I forget that I'm called Koskei and I forget that I'm Kalenjin and I come from down there, then I'll be losing track. So I have to know where I'm going, and we have to know that is what will inform what we are going to do in future. The argument first is public workers, you included, should stay as public workers. That is the argument, and that is the rear mirror they are using, that chiefs and commissioners were used to run campaigns. And now that we're in government, these campaigns cannot be run again by the chiefs. If we don't retrospect, then we will not know where we're going. Tomorrow, we will start using the same chiefs. Tomorrow, we will start using the same PSs and same commissioners to pour money somewhere or to ferry people into a...
Don't you think, do you think the common Mwananchi really need to understand what happened in the rear mirror? I mean, perhaps someone in your local village down there did not have a direct effect of what was happening at the top seat of the political ladder, so to speak. When you have the rear mirror and now you have the bigger windscreen to focus ahead and where we're heading to, do you think the common Mwananchi really cares?
I'll give you an example. Before elections, just 2 weeks before elections, there's some letters that were spread down the Rift Valley.
Yeah.
scaring the common mwananchi.
Let me just use alleged because
Yes.
we can't authenticate that.
Okay. So the common mwananchi went through moments where they were thinking, well, our lives are going to be shaken by the forthcoming election. So many people got affected even down there by whatever our political players are doing up here. So it went down, Victor. It went down. So as we are moving forward, I do not have any objection to the people who are telling us that it is not business as usual. It is not, we shouldn't continue with what the Premier was doing because he was in government.
Yeah.
That's why we keep on mentioning the Premier, the former Premier, every time, because he was part of everything.
Wakili, how do you think now that the cabinet is fully in place? 22 members, they have all been sworn in, and actually it's now rubber meets the road. Yeah. For some of them, the very day they were sworn in, they were in office, they were doing their job. It's all systems go. What should we expect of the current government now that the president is now set, the full mandate is now with full grip of his government? 5 years now, counting.
I think one thing I can say that I have no doubt is that they will deliver. If you look at how the president has structured his cabinet, very professional people have been put to head the various dockets. And of course, I know how the president works, as I have heard. He's very, let me say, hands-on with his cabinet. So I know there'll be certain targets that they'll have to meet. They will have to actually give reports on how they are progressing. Yeah. So in terms of delivery, that I have no doubt. And of course, everyone will be keen to see the various dockets and how they are performing. The one thing I can just say is that within the 5 years, you see the president really, let me say, gave various promises, and we don't know whether, or I hope in the 5 years he'll be able to deliver, but I think the cabinet secretaries will be put to task to deliver the agenda that he campaigned on. Yeah.
There was a bit of a scare when during the cabinet nomination, Malonza, until it was amended by Parliament, and parliamentarians had to do their thing, and luckily all of them had to pass. Gilbert, what do you think? The whole government is now in place, and the government is now banking on his cabinet ministers to deliver.
Yes, thank you, Victor, for that question. First, I would want to say that mgema akisifiwa sana tembo ulitia maji. So we run the risk of overpraising to the extent then the person might forget the core responsibility that they have. If you look at the cabinet now fully in place in Ruto's government, I think he's done fairly well in the sense that he's been able to give key ministries to key political players. Aden Duale, for example, was a very efficient majority leader in parliament. Yeah. Kithure Kindiki, Prof, is a mover and a shaker. And if you look at, even Miano, for example, she has done well at Kengen. Now, the other thing that I'm happy about is that they said they're going to amend standing orders. I'm not sure whether it's amended yet, so that the cabinet secretaries are able to answer questions directly to members of parliament, which I think is a good step, because then it enhances accountability. What I'm keen about is how the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary, Mithika Linturi, will perform, because agriculture, I think, is, apart from education and defense, is one of the ministries that take a lot of government funding. And you have seen that in the Republic of Kenya, there has been a conversation around privatization of sugar mills and many agricultural farms. And one of the issues that has made it hard for the privatization of these mills is because political players have learned to lampoon cases in court so that you can extend this as much as it takes.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the private players continue to reap big from this. So I'm looking at how bold will he be to do things differently to be able to make sugar millers back on their feet. How he does it or what he does, essentially that now is what rests on his docket. And also how he will handle the legislative agenda around GMO. I think we need to have a national policy on how we deal with GMO. And the government position on what GMOs essentially are, because we have opposing sides, each supporting others saying GMO is okay, others saying GMO is okay. We the consumers, where are we in that regard? So I think, as my sister here said, that Ruto is a hands-on person. So you will see his hands everywhere, in as much as he says this government is going to be led by technocrats who have given cabinet positions. But you can be sure you will do what I think merits the consideration and the interest of the president. That in effect has the potential of making the cabinet secretary perform well, because you can't cheat this boss. He knows what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before I come to you, Koskei, we have got ladies in the cabinet. Your point of that, are you happy? Did you perhaps expect more to fill in the cabinet slots?
You know, one thing we have seen post the 2010 constitution, the issue of the two-third gender rule has not yet been fully implemented. But if you see the ratio of men to women in this current cabinet and the previous one, of course there's improvement. But one thing we are looking at, it's not just the increase of women, but how they will perform. Okay, we also see that also Honorable the current chair of the Council of Governors is Waiguru. Yes, and we are also keen to see what is their input in the various positions that they're given. You see, we do not just want the quantity, but also quality leadership. So I think also it's a win for women, but it's now up to them to really improve the perception of women leaders in politics.
Edgar, there must be a lot of pressure on the cabinet. If you heard what the president said, there is no room for failure in this government. I would imagine now what's now running through the minds of all these cabinet secretaries. You take somebody like Murkomen, who is a lawyer, now heading the road transport, and transport department. And of course, somebody would argue that, you know, as a CS, you are the top boss, but now the better part of the job will be done by the PS and the people who are behind you. There must be a lot of pressure for the CSs now to deliver.
If you've walked close to the president, you will know that he walks like a horse. I voted for him. I didn't vote for Murkomen.
And now that now transcends to the cabinet secretaries?
Yes. I didn't vote for Murkomen. I didn't vote for Duale. And the person we are seeing here is the president. And that is why he's working like that. And these people, if they are not used to waking up at 4 a.m., trust you me, these guys are going to disappoint him very much. In as much as people are playing politics, in as much as these are politicians, we expect them to deliver. On our side, we are not cows. And we are not going to be told, oh, support William Ruto, just support him. No. In fact, the irreducible minimums that we would want to have these 5 years is that we do not want to see any extreme poverty again. I've seen people going without food for days in northern Kenya. Sometimes you wonder whether Turkana is Kenya. That should be a thing of the past, and he knows that. And we want also to see that poverty has been reduced by 50%. He knows that. And food, when you look at the United Nations Charter on Food, the SDGs on food, is what he has adapted. The second one, that's why he is thinking about giving us food that we don't have. When you look at the gender, what you've asked her about the gender, see, he was quick to point out that we have seven governors, yes, women, female. And he was quick to congratulate them because that is one of the pillars of the development of the United Nations, as in an outlook of how a nation should be. You know, the social housing plan is what he has to run with. You know, no one has told him that you have to run with it. The opposition were really waiting to pin down this guy. But look, he's not looking at the opposition. First, he's encouraging them. Stand up, come and look at what I'm doing. He told Raila, look at what I'm doing. We are not going to have a handshake because I want you to look at what I'm doing. So now that we have a cabinet in place, they know, even the Minister for Energy knows that we have to go for clean energy and sustainable, efficient energy in our country. First, make sure that we are all connected to the grid. After that, now, think about solar and think about wind turbine. The work is cut for these people, and I am telling you, they are scared, not because of the common Mwananchi or the opposition leader, the former premier. No.
That reminds you of the ambassadors who are told you have to bring 70%. If not, you'll have to come back and explain why that's happening. Gilbert, you know, when you look at the way, you know, the cabinet secretaries are in place, fine. But then now, Mwananchi is now waiting and saying, okay, fine, we elected you guys. The president, you've done your bit, your cabinet is in place. But they say that the president is as good as the cabinet. They're going to deliver. If they don't perform, the president, in fact, they say the buck now will have to stop at the president. Give me a picture of what really runs through the minds of the cabinet secretaries. I have one of them who texted me at 3:30 a.m. These guys are not sleeping. There must be a lot of pressure right now. He sent me a message at 3:52 a.m.
I think the cabinet is as good as the president, and not the president, and the other way around, because you essentially do what you implement the president's dream. Those who have worked with Ruto, as Koskei says, the gentleman is a person who works in a different capacity that would merit perhaps admiration from a number of people. But those who may not be, you know, pro execution of work in real time will really find it hard to work with him. Because I remember when he was the minister in the higher education, and he was telling universities, you can do double intake. And they were giving him stories. He said, gentlemen, this can be done. And I have seen that he has carried that philosophy even yesterday and on Friday when he was at KRA. He gave two instances. One, he said, we don't have a law that enables Nairobi County to increase land rates. He also said, for example, that he had proposed that we increase NSSF contributions, but we were told we don't have a law. And he said, but he did it differently. He was able to bring the Chief Justice and a few other people, and they were able to gazette, and therefore that then can happen as required. So what he's saying, and then he went ahead to tell KRA that the era of cosmetic branding in the name of doing things differently is over. So the president is someone who is looking at, yes, this path is inaccessible, but how many other paths can we create? And therefore that new thinking that I think he's bringing will essentially find its place in the cabinet secretary. I'm sure along the way, there are some who will fall by the wayside, and others will come in. So I think it's a good achievement for some of them, especially for the people who have been, Owalo, for example. I think this has been a good achievement for him, because you remember what happened to him when he was on Raila camp in 2007, the fallout, and he left, and people felt he made a bad decision, but it seems that the decision he made has finally paid off. So I think that really is a good start for a leader, Owalo, and many others. But for the rest, who perhaps have been given because I have to pacify people of a particular area, like Asha Juma, who was essentially given that cabinet portfolio to pacify the gentlemen and ladies from the coast. They have been left out of key portfolios in government. And therefore, we wait to see whether she will do well. You remember what happened to Echesa? During his vetting, many people had a lot of questions about him, but we said, let's see what he can do. He messed it up and he fell by the wayside. So I wish her well to prove the naysayers wrong. So that is what awaits the cabinet secretary.
When you look at that, Atieno, Wakili, you know, the expectation now is that they are going to deliver. But there is one aspect of kila mtu lazima alipe ushuru. So which means the cabinet secretaries will have to deliver, yes. But what about you and I? First of all, we have to pay taxes for the cabinet secretaries to deliver. Now that begs the question, where are the jobs? Because for you to pay taxes, there must be certain level of income. And now that's what the president is banking on.
I think when the president gave this direction to increase the tax burden, I think he should have maybe considered the issue of the jobs. And I'm thinking one thing that will be very critical is to see how the informal sector will bear the tax burden, because most of the, let me say, income tax that is being paid, of course, is from the formal sector.
Yes.
And we are seeing that he's saying that everyone above 18 should be taxed. So what is the basis of this? Because you see, in implementing any policy, there has to be some research done, there has to be some groundwork that has been laid. What is the basis of him saying that every person above 18 should be taxed?
There's so many over 18 who are still in high school.
Exactly, and even who are in campus and are not earning anything. You see, I think also as he tries to implement his agenda, there has to be some form of realistic ways that he's connecting his agenda with actually the real situation in the ground. Because we cannot expect people between the age of 18 and 25 to have any formal source of income. You're still a developing economy. And also one thing, again, with the increasing taxation burden, we know that, like for example, corporation tax is usually a lot on both, let me say, foreign incorporated companies and companies in Kenya. So it might actually make investors to shy away from investing in Kenya. So I think he should have a balance and a clear laid out plan and actually say, what is this plan? Because I think we remember very well the vifaranga, sorry, not the vifaranga of computer, but the laptops which were promised and they were not delivered. Okay, so also as we have things to point out that there are things he said in the past and they were not workable. Is this a policy that will be implementable and sustainable, and will it actually motivate people to work harder, or will it motivate people to actually shy away from paying taxes?
So Gilbert, now what would be the alternative? Because when you have got 18, you are above 18, there should be a proposal that so long as you clock the legal age, pay taxes.
No, I think we need to be fair to the president here and understand where he's coming from. And his conversation around tax did not begin today. Even yesterday, that was the climax of essentially how he thinks the tax regime should operate in this country. My understanding of the president messaging around tax is that I'm saying, yes, we are in a country where the tax payment regime has been imbalanced. In fact, he said yesterday that the wadosis are the problem. The president has wale watu wa chini chini hawana shida. So what the president is saying, that essentially most Kenyans perform their tax obligations, but there are people who own billions of shillings who don't pay taxes. And he had said that for me, what I would like is that let's pay taxes according to our what.
So that message was directed to the big shots.
Yeah, let's pay our taxes according to our sizes. Yes. If I'm earning 100 million, then why should I not pay 10 million? If I'm earning 1,000 shillings, then why should I not give the government maybe 50 shillings from that? And the biggest source of tax in Kenya is pay as you earn. So perhaps as he speaks about this, he should also be cognizant of the fact that much of the money he expects comes from jobs. And therefore, in as much as he expands the tax bracket, let's all create more job opportunities so that you can be able to get the much money that you need to run the government. But he also made proposals about taxes. That's why I think his conversation around tax is very genuine. He's telling KRA that your philosophy around tax collection has been detrimental to the economic growth of this country. And Rigathi Gachagua exemplifies this by saying, you have someone who gives you 50 million of 100 million shillings a month. Yes, he has 1 billion shillings to pay you. When you close his business, you've missed 1 billion and you missed the 100 million per month. So what essentially are you bringing money to government, or you're counterproductive to the government agenda? So he was saying, let's rethink our strategy around tax collection so that going forward we keep collecting more and conversing more with people. But he also threw the spanner into the works that I also know now, the president, that Tanzania, a smaller economy, Uganda, a smaller economy, on excise duty, they sell about 7 9. Our country only does 2 billion. Then he said, what is it? Where is the balance going? So he's saying you are focusing on the wrong areas. You already have, because excise duty is mandatory for every transaction that you have. So I think the president has legitimate expectation around how we can improve our tax system without us saying that he's coming to tax us more than we should. In any case, if you're not in employment or if you're not engaged in business, we do not expect you to pay tax, because tax is, an extra from what you have earned. So I think, but perhaps the jitters come from the fact that he made comparison with Safaricom, that is able to, only 7 million Kenyans are paying tax. Safaricom, registered on PIN, have PIN numbers. Safaricom has 30 million. But remember, Safaricom has invested in a service that every other person has. And there are people in this country who have 3 or 4 numbers. There are corporations that also have mobile, really. But KRA, even to get a PIN, the process of getting a PIN is so hard that they will continue even to hit 10 million will be so difficult. Unless they make it easier, as getting a SIM card is as easy as just walking out to the nearest shop and getting it. And the other thing that I think awaits the president, I need to think about this. I'm glad that he talked about KRA being a service as opposed to an authority. Just walk to Times Towers here. That is the place where we should be remitting our taxes. Accessing that building is like, it is easier to get to the Defense College than getting to KRA. And this is an institution that is supposed to be collecting money for government. So I think first it should be dismantled. It should be in an open place where we pass and see that, oh, this is where, a transparent place, as opposed to that kind of, seclusion from the society.
But you're right, because you have got several barriers. Before you reach the main entrance, you'll have to pass through so many barriers before you get to the main entrance of the KRA. All right. So, gentlemen, let me take a break. When you come back, I still want us to dig more on that. And so which means Kenya is a rich country, Koskei. Then we are able to sustain ourselves, if that is the case then.
It is very rich.
Okay, let's take a break. We'll be right back with more. And welcome back. Now we are coming almost to the tail end of this discussion. There's a question here, and this one all of you will have to answer. Now the president is talking, the deputy president is talking about Raila Odinga. Is it trying to bring in Raila Odinga into his cabinet through back door to tame him, or what are they trying to do? Let me start with you, Koskei.
I shouldn't have
because I think this statement is meant. Remember 2 weeks ago, they said Kalonzo was called upon to join.
Yes.
Actually, it was last week.
Yes.
Kalonzo Musyoka was called into cabinet and he said no. But still, they are still calling him to join the cabinet. And now they don't want Raila Odinga, but they were calling on Kalonzo Musyoka. So where are they? Based on that question.
Kalonzo was called into the government since last year. You remember when they were going to convince the electorate?
Yes.
Tumambie huyu jamaa kuja kufanya na sisi. That was the language on the ground.
Yes.
So they've been wooing Kalonzo for the longest time, even up to now, up to today. So if Kalonzo decides to ditch the opposition, he will have a place in government.
To whose advantage and disadvantage?
Well, to the advantage of the country, because...
You're being smart on that question.
Well, to the advantage of the country, because one, we don't have to be in the opposition, all of us. We should leave the opposition for those people who want to be in the opposition.
And Kalonzo doesn't need to be in the opposition, according to you?
No one does. No one should be in the court.
Who are these people who are supposed to be left to who belong to the opposition?
One, the opposition leader, right? The opposition leader should be in the opposition. And this narrative is going around that the opposition leader is being quoted.
Yes.
Is something that should not appear in any discussion anywhere, because the opposition leader belongs to the opposition, criticizing the government positively for the government to deliver. But you do not have to be with him.
Okay.
Kalonzo, I would talk to him too. You don't have to be the opposition leader.
Yes.
And all those affiliate parties of Azimio, it is time to fold your mat and join the government. But now let's leave the opposition leader with his people.
Koskei, that is not
the
possible.
People who
that is not possible. Azimio as a coalition have a big legal binding document, and you can imagine all the Azimio folding and joining the government. That would be like, quote unquote, what was in the President Kenyatta's regime.
What was in the President Kenyatta's regime?
Where people say
was a handshake of how many people? 2.
Exactly.
You see, the reason why I'm calling it the handshake of 2 people is because Musalia even didn't know that there was a handshake. Alishtukia tu asubuhi, wow, kuna ka handshake. Wetangula. Kalonzo complained the whole time that we were left behind. William Ruto on this other side, when he was the deputy president, said, those are brothers, and he's my president, and let him do the handshake. So, the handshake carried the leader and the people. The people agreed, but the lieutenants of the former premier, those people who were supporting him at the top, did not agree. So, whatever it is that is happening now, see how those people who are part of Azimio, they moved immediately, Ruto won, into the government, despite this legally binding agreement you're talking about. And they were like, 3 months after election, you are free to make your own choices. Why haven't these people even gone to court to put UDM to task for moving into the government side? Because it will not hold water. They have seen it. So, whatever it is, people should not be in the court. But the former premier has a task, which he should do. Cut out for him. But it is quite unfortunate that there is no office with PACs. That is what we should look at. That the opposition is very important, that it should have 1 recognizable office, 2 shadow ministers, 3 everything. I think
that's one of the things the president was also talking about, that they'll have an amendment in parliament for an opposition leader to have,
to be respected.
Exactly.
Because around 6 million Kenyans are behind him, or something like that. So we should amend that. And those people now who want to be in the cold should be in the cold.
All right, I'll still ask you that question, whether Kenya is rich or not, but that question was meant for you. But Gilbert, based on this question, the question being asked is, are they trying to woo Raila Odinga to join the government slightly and silently? And to whose advantage?
They're using a different strategy to weaken Raila Odinga. I don't think it is in the interest of the Kenya Kwanza to have Raila Odinga share a piece of the cake like they did with Uhuru Kenyatta. What they are doing is to kill all his foot soldiers so that he's completely weakened. You know that he's not a young man anymore. And therefore, if you look at the numbers, Ukambani gave Raila Odinga wholeheartedly, with all their hearts. And therefore, if you call Kalonzo to your side, you're essentially inheriting the constituency of Kalonzo. And you've seen Kalonzo making trips to Nyanza and other places. And it has been argued that perhaps he's also thinking, he has, showed statesmanship to Raila Odinga by supporting him 3 times.
Yeah.
And there is no other time for the people of that place to also return favor. So he stands a better chance. So by trying to call him to government, you just want him to face the suffer the consequences of Mudavadi and Wetangula's dining with the president. Now they're on the president's side, you can be sure for the next 10 years, if they stay as cabinet secretary, by the time 10 years are done, Musalia Mudavadi will have no ambitions of becoming the president of this country. Wetangula will have no ambitions of becoming the president of this country. It will be a new breed. So the president would want to have a smoother transition into 2027 without a very strong opposition like Uhuru Kenyatta and even Mwai Kibaki had. That is what is driving him.
Okay.
So Raila will not come to the government in the interest of Kenya Kwanza.
Wakili.
What I can say is that we are all aware that the coalition party agreement that they signed expires on 9th of November. Now, as my colleagues have said, this is a strategy that they're using because for sure if you're not, as I've said earlier, if they're not saying anything or doing anything, it's usually for an intention, an intended purpose. So the fact that they know that the coalition agreement expires on 9th of November, and therefore there will be no binding agreement for the parties who are within the Azimio coalition. And therefore now calling out Raila and trying to show, or I don't know, to depict to the people how maybe he was not, let me say, he did not do his best, or for whichever reasons they are calling him out, is a strategy to be able to win more people to the Kenya Kwanza side. Yes.
And what if Kalonzo doesn't join them? Do you see Kalonzo going full throttle to 2027?
I think with Kalonzo, considering I was part of the team that was creating the OCA agreement, it's hard to really predict him. Okay, we can just say that for him he goes where his interests are met, and of course I'm sure he still has political ambitions. So for him it's up to him to decide what suits him best, and of course, as we earlier said, there are no permanent friends or enemies
in politics.
Yes, so he will go where his interests are met.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Koskei, is Kenya a rich country?
Let me give you some few statistics, though not accurate to the point. We're collecting 2.1 trillion as we speak now. Our wage bill is 1.6.
And now the president has raised that to 3 trillion.
No, he is yet to.
He's yet to?
Yes, he has given them a target of 3 trillion. Our budget as we speak is 3.3 trillion. Our budget deficit is 1.4 trillion. So, to meet the country's needs, we borrow 1.4 trillion. Or they're about 1.6. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if we move our collection from 2.1 trillion to 3 trillion, then, and we maintain our budget at 3.3, then we'll have a deficit of 300 billion. That's why the president has said we don't need 300 billion, so that we don't borrow.
Okay.
So push this collection to 3 trillion, and then he has said, within 5 years, we double it to 6 trillion. How? Widening the tax base. And he said, we're going to change the tax regime. We tax the wealthy first. And everybody has to pay taxes, he said, including me. It means that if you are...
Including his companies.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what he said. If you looked into it very well, that I have been paying taxes. That he was not excluded from paying taxes, even if he was the deputy president. He was not. But the former regime, there are people who are sacred cows who are not paying taxes. That's why he's saying, I'll be keen to see that those who are wealthy pay taxes. And you tax the country in this manner, wealth, and then you go to entrepreneurs. After that, you finish with an employee down there in that manner. He said that if you change it like that, then you will hit 3 trillion. After that now, come with policies that will widen the tax bracket and empower the local mwananchi by giving him the 50 billion that he said, that now everyone will be thinking of how to come up with an idea and to raise some amount of money. That's how now the tax bracket is going to be widened. And by the time we reach 5 years, I am thinking, I'm not actually sure, that we'll have hit 6 trillion. We will not have to borrow. Another thing he's targeting is NSSF, or your savings. That actually you won't lose your money, but you will loan it to the government, so that when you retire, after 30 years of service, then your money still belongs to you. That is his argument. I don't know where he's headed to, but what I want to caution Kenyans is that we need to be part of the conversation. When you listen to him talking about the taxes, stop and think, what is he saying? Is it beneficial to me?
Yeah.
What can I tell him so that he can change 1, 2, 3? That's why there's this conversation. And if you listen to my colleagues here, it is a very informed conversation.
Atieno, do you think we can go as a country without borrowing, based on his agenda? Because so far we've not had him talk of, visiting, World Bank or IMF or something of that sort. Can we sustain ourselves as a country?
Yes, we can, and I think also one thing that he should be at the forefront of handling is the issue of corruption.
Yeah.
Because yes, we will collect the taxes, yes, we will put the necessary policies to be able to increase the money that is retained within government, but who are the people who are actually at the forefront of safeguarding these processes? I think as a country, when we focus on actually curbing corruption, rather than, of course, improving the policies and not putting the safeguards within which we collect the revenue from whichever sources that we do, we can be able to actually avoid borrowing. Because I think also one thing, as I've been trying to look at how African countries always borrow from the West or from actually China, it's because of the various corruption scandals in the country. And I think I am very keen to see, as an advocate, I've seen one of my seniors say that actually practicing in the anti-corruption court has become one of the 1,000 ways to die as a lawyer, because some of these people who are involved in these corruption scandals are the people who are in government. So for me, I'll be very keen to see how he's handling the issues to do with corruption as he tries to collect the revenue that he should within the country.
We are in total debt right now, but much as he's trying to realign his government, Gilbert, we are also aware of the foreign debt that we still have as a country. So he doesn't want to borrow, yes. He wants to realign his government. He wants to achieve. So how is he going to balance the two? He must deliver, but pay the foreign debts that we still owe foreign jurisdictions.
I think he has seen that the only way out is to do what Kibaki did. And you've had every time they speak, they make reference to the Kibaki regime, totally ignore the regime that they were part of for 5 years or for 10 years, and then now, uplift what they're yet to do. So I think he's aware, having been a cabinet secretary in Kibaki government, that indeed through, internal sources, we are able to sustain ourselves. But governments the world over borrow. And even them, what I would like also the president to tell us is what really changed, because in 2013, when they just inherited the Kibaki's government that is so praised for having, done away with the external borrowing, they started borrowing, and they borrowed also as much. And now 2017, 2022, when there is a handshake, borrowing becomes a problem. So perhaps he also needs to be very consistent and come out on what he thought then about borrowing and why they had borrowed, having inherited a government that was essentially self-sustaining, and the difference now. But on your question on whether or not there is money in this country, there is a lot of money in this country. Why does everybody want to be a politician? Why is it that all the richest people in this country are politicians? The richest people, the president, former president, are the richest people in this country. Why would you spend billions of shillings to earn a salary of just 1 million shillings per month. So indeed, there is a lot of money. Apart from corruption, we also need to safeguard, our collection mechanism, so that not a lot of money becomes undeclared.
All right.
Yes.
Let's take a break, and when you come back, I'm coming back with your final thoughts, and probably go through the social media and get what people are asking on our social media handles. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with the final bit of this discussion. All right, welcome back. Now we are coming to a close of this discussion. I'm going to give you, gentlemen and lady, for you to give your final remarks on this. A lot is happening. Of course, we should expect again the CBC, the task force starting their job today, the public participation to get their views, and thereafter they'll also present their total report to the president. But just get your final remarks as we come to an end, starting with you, Akili.
What I can say is that when the Kenyans go to the ballot every election year, they hope for change. And I think the hustler narrative really was drummed into Kenyans' ears, and of course they believe that there's going to be some form of change, or they hope for a better tomorrow. I can tell Kenyans to really hope for the best and wait and see, but also for our leaders to live up to the expectations, because they created a legitimate expectation within the Kenyans, and also that they should just try to make Kenyans' lives better, because the issue with mostly African politics is that people sometimes forget their core mandate, and people tend to now amass wealth when they're in those positions. So I hope that the leaders who have been put in place will really look out for the interests of Kenyans, and of course we hope to see growth within the next 5 years.
Yes. We still have got the position of the PSS still pending, and we know 49 of them will have to fit in different positions. What should you expect? Because now the CS slot is now completely sealed. Now the 49 remaining PSS and all of the heads of parastatals and what have you. What should you expect?
Of course, the allies will be rewarded. That is obvious. But also because we know the PSS are, by the nature of their jobs, expected to do more in terms of implementing the various government policies. We hope to see that more people with the technical expertise in the various ministries will be put as PSs. And also we hope to see, of course, the gender balance within also the appointment of the PSs. Yes.
Gilbert, a lot more still coming up for the president. He's not yet settled. Second month and still having his government in shape fully.
Considering the fact that he does not have the people with authority to incur expenditure in various ministries. I know that the president is keen on having technocrats as his PSs as opposed to politicians. But of course, you'll expect a few like Sosion. I see he's with the president all the time. A few politicians will be, because you also have to give your people who supported you. It's a political environment. But certainly, to a great extent, you'll see a lot of technocrats finding their space in the PS environment to enable the president execute his agenda. Because you remember the cabinet secretary essentially political figureheads. But in conclusion, as I hope that also this is an opportunity to conclude, that I expect the president also to be magnanimous and to stop behaving like a spoiled child of privilege. Ulikuwa unaninyima mkate, sasa niko na mkate, utafanya? You see, let him be the gentleman. Our elections are generally very invasive and divisive, but let them be the uniting factor. Let them, so that everybody, when you show me good, I will always do good. But when you continue drumming my head and there is already paining, because imagine the pain. I know Azimio people are really hurting because there had been promised that this government is ours, we are going to get it. Then suddenly you don't get it. So I hope that he's going to be a gentleman and, lead the country with the magnanimity of a president who wants to unite the country and let us achieve a better tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Koskei, your closing remarks. Even as you answer that, the president has abandoned Kazim Tani. all right, saying that, Kazim Tani is not going to be there. So Kenya, they are going to start saving and what have you. Remember, he said that in Kibra. As you come to close on that, your closing remarks.
Well, the discussion about Kazim Tani is a long one. And there are reasons behind it. Because Kazim Tani, you do not know what to pay for certain services, because after someone has graduated, you give them a djembe to go and dig somewhere. So quantifying the amount of work and the skill level required for that work is a hard one. That's why I was telling you, it is a discussion that we can have it another time. For now, let's leave it aside. You've mentioned CBC.
Yes.
That the task force has now started.
Exactly today.
Functioning today.
Yeah.
Now, what we expect from CBC as we go forward, because they've been given 6 months to deliver, we want free primary and free secondary education. And that, I think that is what they should capture.
Yeah.
And accessible and affordable university education and tertiary schools. And we want our teachers to be remunerated very well, because without education, you wouldn't be here. Because what made you fit for this place is your education and your papers. So you prepare a nation using education. We shouldn't be playing for such a thing.
Yeah.
Another final thought on the incoming cabinet secretaries is that a choir cannot be above the choir master. So the way the president is working is how everyone who's been appointed, whether PSS, had you mentioned PSS, the CSS, and everyone coming. And lastly, get ready for a roller coaster. This is not the usual president.
Get ready for a roller coaster. You said something. A choir should not be ahead of the choir master.
No, it can't be.
Go as per the conduct of the choir master.
Yes.
Okay. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you so much for your time. We've had a fruitful conversation here, and hopefully things are going to be better for this country. Just to bring up to speed, today the Deputy President, that is Rigathi Gachagua, this morning is expected to preside over the launch of the Kenya Youth Employment Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program, otherwise known as KYEEAP, by Kenya Private Sector Association, or KEPSA. So Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua will preside over the launch of the Kenya Youth Empowerment Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program. That is going to be happening this morning. So that and much more will be coming up later on in our subsequent bulletins. So keep it right here. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. We'll be speaking to Edgar, Koskei, who is a political analyst, as well as Gilbert, Awino, who is a budding lawyer and a communication expert, and finally Atieno, who is advocate of the High Court. I think now I should let you go and build Kenyans and pay taxes. Pay taxes. All right? Okay. Asanteni sana. Up next is a very nice feature on military. Where are we? A very nice feature coming up after this. Good morning.